The great hall of Harmony Point Station stretched high above Veltara's head, its crystal ceiling showing the stars beyond. She stood on the platform wearing the ceremonial robes of her people, purple fabric that shimmered like water. Her skin, naturally crystalline and blue, caught the light from 1,000 worlds represented here today. She was a princess of the Zothrene Empire, daughter of Emperor Zarthun, and she was about to marry a human. The thought made her stomach turn. Around her, representatives from dozens of species watched in silence. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. For 3 years, her people and the humans had circled each other like predators. Ever since the incident at Kepler 442, ships had been destroyed. Lives had been lost. War had seemed certain. This marriage was supposed to stop it. Veltara looked across the platform at the human who would be her husband. Commander Jake Collins stood in his dress uniform, dark blue with silver trim. He was tall for his species, with brown hair cut short and eyes that seemed almost gray in this light. His face showed no emotion as he waited. He looked calm. Too calm, she thought. Humans were supposed to be emotional creatures, driven by feelings they could barely control. That was what all the reports said. They were young to the galaxy, barely 80 years since their first jump drive. They were violent, aggressive, and dangerous. Their whole history was war after war after war, and yet this one stood quietly, hands clasped behind his back, looking almost peaceful. The ceremony began. A Zothrene elder spoke the traditional words in her language, then a human official repeated them in standard galactic. Veltara barely heard them. She was too focused on trying to understand the man she was about to bind herself to. When it was time, Jake stepped forward. He had learned the Zothrene greeting, the one that required precise hand movements and a bow at exactly the right angle. He performed it perfectly. Veltara blinked in surprise. Most aliens took months to learn that gesture. He had only known about this ceremony for 3 weeks. "Princess Veltara," he said in careful Zothrene, his accent rough but understandable. "I accept this union, in the hope of peace between our peoples." She responded in the human language called English, words she had practiced. "Commander Collins, I accept this union for the future of both our kinds." They did not kiss, as humans did at their weddings. They did not touch palms, as Zothrene did. Instead, they simply stood together, as the officials declared them bound by treaty and tradition. The hall erupted in polite applause that sounded hollow. This was not a marriage of love. Everyone knew it. This was politics, wearing the costume of romance. Later, in the reception hall, Veltara stood beside Jake as dignitaries approached them one by one. Each offered congratulations that felt empty. Her father approached. His face, unreadable. "Daughter," Emperor Zarthun said softly in their language, "you do a great service to our people." "I understand my duty, father," she replied. Her father glanced at Jake, who stood quietly nearby. "The human. He seems controlled." "Too controlled," Veltara said. "I do not trust it." Her father's expression flickered with something she could not read. "Perhaps that is wise. But give him a chance. This peace depends on it." After the reception, Veltara and Jake were taken to the diplomatic vessel called Covenant. It would be their home, a ship that traveled between human and Zothrene space. The quarters they were given were large, with separate sleeping areas. The humans had been very careful about that. They understood that this marriage was symbolic, not romantic. Jake stood near the viewport, looking out at the stars. Veltara watched him from across the room. He had been quiet all day, speaking only when required. "You learned our greeting well," she said finally, breaking the silence. He turned to her, and for the first time, she saw him smile. It was small, almost sad. "I thought it was important." A gesture of respect. "I thought it was important. Most humans do not bother learning alien customs. Most humans have not married an alien princess," he said. Then he added, "I know this is not what you wanted. I know you see my people as dangerous. Maybe we are. But I want you to know that I will do everything I can to make this work. For peace. Veltara studied him. His words sounded sincere, but she had been trained in diplomacy since childhood. She knew how to lie with truth. Why did you agree to this? She asked. You are a military commander. Surely you had a choice. Jake was quiet for a long moment. I have seen enough war, he said finally. If my marriage can prevent more, then it is worth it. The days that followed fell into a strange routine. Veltara and Jake lived in the same quarters, but maintained careful distance. They ate meals together, because it was expected. They attended diplomatic functions as a united front. But they were strangers, sharing space. Nothing more. Veltara began to observe him more closely. She expected to see signs of the violence her people feared in humans. Instead, she saw something unexpected. Jake spent his mornings in the ship's garden, tending to earth plants he had brought. He read constantly. Old books on paper, which humans still preferred. He played music sometimes, soft and melodic. One evening, she found him reading poetry. What is that? She asked. He showed her the book. Ancient Earth Poetry. From a culture called Japan. I find it peaceful. She read a few lines. They spoke of cherry blossoms and the changing seasons. This is human writing? Yes. We are not only war, princess. We create beauty too. Veltara felt something shift in her understanding. She had expected a warrior. What she got was a man who grew flowers and read poetry about spring. She began to relax around him. Jake was patient, never pushing for more than she was willing to give. He learned more of her language. He asked about Zothrine culture with genuine interest. He cooked human food and offered to share it, explaining each ingredient. 2 months into the marriage, Veltara sent a report to her father. The human is not what I expected, she wrote. He is gentle, educated, and committed to peace. I believe the humans may have evolved beyond their violent past. This one, at least, seems harmless. Her sister Kiranel visited shortly after. She took one look at Jake, who was in the garden again, and laughed. You have domesticated the human, she said. He was already this way, Veltara replied. The reports were wrong. They are not all warriors. Kiranel's expression turned serious. Sister, do not be a fool. Humans do not send their weakest to negotiate. They send their strongest. Ask yourself why a military commander was chosen for this marriage. Because he wants peace, like I do. Her sister shook her head. Believe what you want. But remember, predators are most dangerous when they appear harmless. After Kiranel left, Veltara tried to dismiss her words. But doubt had been planted. She began to notice small things. Jake never mentioned his military service. His quarters had no photographs, no awards, nothing from his past. When she asked about his career, he changed the subject. One night, she heard him cry out in his sleep. She went to check on him and found him sitting up, breathing hard. Just a dream, he said when he saw her. Old memories. They mean nothing. But Veltara saw something in his eyes in that moment. Something dark and distant. It was gone in a second, replaced by his usual calm expression. Jake, she said carefully. What did you do? Before this marriage? He looked at her for a long time. What was necessary, he said. But that is past. Now I do what is right. She wanted to ask more, but something in his tone stopped her. Instead, she returned to her room, wondering for the first time if she really knew the man she had married at all. Outside the viewport, the stars turned slowly, indifferent to the questions of those who traveled among them. 6 months had passed since the wedding, and Veltara found herself thinking of Jake as something close to a friend. It surprised her how much things had changed. The man she had feared and resented now made her laugh with his stories about Earth. He showed her recordings of his home planet, things she had never imagined. This is an ocean, Jake said, playing a video on the display screen. Water stretched endlessly, blue and moving. Waves crashed against rocks. 70% of Earth is covered in water like this. Veltara watched, mesmerized. Her world had water, but nothing like this. It is beautiful, she admitted. I grew up near one, Jake said. His voice held warmth she had not heard before. As a child, I would spend hours watching the waves. They are never the same twice. Do you miss it? She asked. Every day. He smiled. But it was sad. But this is more important. Building something new with you. With our peoples. These moments confused Veltara. The more time she spent with Jake, the less he seemed like the dangerous human she had been warned about. He was kind. He was thoughtful. He remembered small details about her preferences. When she mentioned liking a certain type of fruit from her home world, he researched it and had some delivered to the ship. They began eating breakfast together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They shared books, recommending favorites to each other. Jake introduced her to human music, and she taught him Zathrine meditation techniques. One evening, they sat together in the observation lounge. The stars streaked past as the Covenant traveled between systems. I was wrong about humans, Veltara said suddenly. Jake looked at her, surprised. What do you mean? I thought you were all violent, driven by aggression. But you are not like that at all. Jake was quiet for a moment. Humans are complicated, he said carefully. We have capacity for both violence and peace, for creation and destruction. It depends on what we choose. But you have chosen peace, Veltara said. Yes, he agreed. I have. She wanted to ask him about the nightmares that still woke him sometimes. About the way he sometimes stared at nothing, with eyes that seemed to see something far away. But she did not want to break the comfortable silence between them. The peace between their peoples was holding. There had been no major incidents since the wedding. Both sides seemed committed to making it work. Veltara began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had succeeded. Then came the border incident. A Zathrine patrol ship encountered a human freighter in disputed space. Neither side was clearly in the wrong, but tensions rose quickly. The Zathrine captain demanded the freighter leave. The human captain refused, claiming legal transit rights. Ships powered weapons. Fingers hovered over firing controls. Word reached the Covenant within hours. Veltara felt panic rise in her chest. This was how wars started. One small mistake, one nervous officer, and everything they had built would burn. Jake took charge immediately. He contacted both ships, his voice calm and authoritative. This is Commander Jake Collins of the Terran Defense Fleet. I am ordering the freighter to withdraw to neutral space. Then he switched to speaking Zathrine, addressing their patrol captain. Captain Torvan, I ask that you allow the freighter safe passage to neutral coordinates. There is no honor in war over a misunderstanding. For hours, Jake negotiated. He listened to both sides. He found common ground. He proposed solutions that let both captains save face. Veltara watched him work and felt admiration growing. He was brilliant at this, understanding exactly what each side needed to hear. Finally, both ships agreed to withdraw. The crisis passed. You were amazing, Veltara told him afterward. Jake looked exhausted. I just did what needed to be done. You prevented a war. Maybe, he said. Or maybe I just delayed it. Peace is fragile, Veltara. It requires constant work. She noticed he was shaking slightly. The stress of the situation had affected him more than he showed. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand. It was the first physical contact they had shared since the wedding ceremony. Jake looked at her hand on his, then at her face. Something passed between them, something neither could name. Thank you, he said softly, for trusting me to handle that. I am beginning to trust you with many things, she replied. Her father sent a message of congratulations. Her sister Kiranel, however, was less impressed. "He talks well," she wrote to Veltara. "But words are easy. Predators know how to calm their prey." Veltara dismissed the message, but it bothered her more than she wanted to admit. She began to notice things she had missed before. Jake's quarters were still bare of personal items. When other human officers visited the ship, they treated Jake with unusual deference, even those who outranked him. There was respect in their eyes, but also something else. Something like fear. One day, Captain Lisa Morgan visited. She was Jake's former commanding officer. A stern woman with sharp eyes. She and Jake spoke privately, but Veltara overheard part of their conversation. "You are doing well here," Morgan said. "But do not forget who you are, Jake." "What? You are?" "I have not forgotten," Jake replied. "But I am choosing to be something else now." "Can you choose that?" Morgan asked. "Or is it just sleeping?" Veltara did not hear Jake's response. That night, she asked him directly. "Jake, what did you do before this? What was your role in the military?" He looked at her for a long time. "I was special operations," he said finally. "I went places where normal soldiers could not go. I did things that needed to be done." "Crease. What kind of things?" "The kind we do not talk about," he said. His voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. "The kind that let other people sleep safely at night." "Were you good at it?" Jake's expression did not change. "I was very good at it." Something cold touched Veltara's spine. She saw him clearly for a moment. Really saw him. This gentle man who grew flowers and read poetry had another side. She had just never seen it. "But I left that behind," Jake said, as if reading her thoughts. "I want to build, not destroy. You made me remember that I could choose that." She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. But doubt had crept in. Over the following weeks, Veltara tried to learn more about Jake's past. The human military records were classified, but she had ways of getting information. What she found was strange. There were huge gaps in his service record, missions with no details, commendations with no explanations, and a nickname that appeared in several encrypted files, Wraith 1. When she searched for information about that name, she found nothing. She did not confront Jake about it. Part of her did not want to know. The Jake she knew was kind and peaceful. The Jake who tended his garden and cooked her breakfast and talked about building a better future. She did not want to meet whoever Wraith 1 was, but Kira Nell's words echoed in her mind. Predators are most dangerous when they appear harmless. 3 weeks before everything changed, Veltara and Jake were invited to New Meridian. It was a new colony, jointly built by humans and Shathreen. The first of its kind. They were going to attend a celebration, a festival of peace. Jake seemed excited about it. "This is what it is all about," he said, as they prepared for the trip. "Our peoples, working together, building together. This is the future. Our peoples." Veltara smiled at his enthusiasm. She pushed her doubts aside. Maybe she was overthinking everything. Maybe Jake really was exactly what he seemed. They boarded a shuttle for New Meridian, joining dozens of other diplomats and officials. The planet appeared in the viewport, green and blue, with settlements visible from orbit. It looked peaceful. It looked like hope. Neither of them knew that in less than a week, that peace would shatter, and Veltara would finally learn what her husband really was. New Meridian was beautiful. Veltara stood on the balcony of the settlement's central hall, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Below, humans and Shathreen walked together through the streets, talking and laughing. Children of both species played in the parks. It was everything the peace was supposed to create. Jake stood beside her, smiling at the scene. "This is worth it," he said. "All of it. Every difficult moment, every compromise. This makes it worth it." Veltara felt warmth in her chest. "I agree," she said. I never thought I would see our peoples like this. The celebration that evening was joyful. Music played, mixing human and Zothrine styles. Food from both cultures was shared. Veltara tried human dishes she had never tasted before. Jake danced with her in a way that blended their traditions, making the other guests laugh and applaud. For the first time since their wedding, Veltara felt genuinely happy. She looked at Jake and saw not just a diplomatic partner, but someone she cared about. Someone who maybe cared about her, too. They retired late to their quarters in the settlement's guest building. Veltara fell asleep quickly, exhausted but content. She woke to the sound of explosions. The room shook. Alarms screamed. Veltara stumbled out of bed, confused and terrified. Jake was already up, moving to the window. His face had changed completely. The gentle expression was gone, replaced by something cold and focused. "Get dressed," he said. His voice was different, hard, commanding. "Now. Move fast. What is happening? We are under attack." He was pulling on clothes, moving with frightening speed. Talon hegemony. At least 3 ships in orbit, ground forces already landing. Outside, the sky was burning. Vessels streaked overhead, dropping pods that crashed into the settlement. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Screams rose from the streets. Jake went to a panel on the wall and entered a code. The panel slid open, revealing weapons. Veltara stared in shock. "How did you know that was there?" "No, I know a lot of things," Jake said. He was loading equipment onto his body with practiced efficiency. Pistols, knives, grenades, things she had never seen him touch before. "When you live like I have, you learn to prepare." He turned to her, and Veltara barely recognized him. His eyes were different, cold, empty of the warmth she had grown used to. "I need you to get to the emergency shelter. 3rd level down. West corridor. Can you do that? What about you? I have work to do." He checked his weapons one final time, then moved to a communication panel. His fingers flew over the controls, entering codes. "This is Wraith 1, he said into the speaker. His voice was calm, almost casual. "Authorization. Collins, Theta 9. I am going active. Send the cavalry. Wraith 1. "Jake, what is Wraith 1? He looked at her, and for a moment, she saw regret in his eyes. "It is who I was before I met you. Who I have to be again. Just for a while." He moved to the door. "Get to the shelter, Veltara. Stay there until I come for you. Do not come out for anyone else. Drom, Jake, I am sorry you have to see this." Then he was gone, moving into the burning hallway. Veltara stood frozen for a moment, then her training took over. She dressed quickly and moved toward the shelter, as Jake had instructed. The hallways were chaos. People running, screaming. She helped where she could, guiding others toward safety. The shelter was a reinforced room deep underground. Dozens of people were already there, humans and Zothrine huddled together in fear. Veltara entered and immediately looked for a way to see what was happening outside. She found a security station with access to surveillance feeds. Her hands shook as she pulled up cameras across the settlement. What she saw made her blood freeze. Jake moved through the burning streets like death itself. 3 Talon soldiers appeared from around a corner, weapons raised. Jake did not slow down. He moved faster than Veltara thought possible, a blur of motion. Before the soldiers could fire, he was among them. Precise strikes, no wasted movement. All 3 were down in seconds. He took one of their weapons and kept moving. Veltara cycled through different cameras, following him. She watched as he encountered a squad of 6 Talon warriors in heavy armor. They had better weapons, better protection. It did not matter. Jake used the environment, ducking behind cover, drawing them into a trap. He used their own grenades against them. When it was over, all 6 were dead. and Jake had barely slowed down. This was not fighting. This was something else. Something horrible and beautiful at the same time. She watched him clear building after building, saving civilians trapped by the attack. He moved with absolute confidence, knowing exactly where to go, what to do. Every action was calculated. Every shot was precise. The Talon hegemony soldiers began to fear him. She could see it on the feeds. They started avoiding areas where he had been spotted. They called to each other in their language, warning of the demon in blue that hunted them. Jake found a group of Talon soldiers holding civilians hostage in a market square. Veltara watched as he approached alone, hands raised as if surrendering. The Talon commander shouted something. Jake responded in their language, his voice calm and reasonable. He was negotiating. Veltara felt hope. Maybe he could solve this peacefully, like he always did. Then Jake moved. 1 second he was 10 meters away, hands raised. The next, he was behind the Talon commander. A knife at the alien's throat. The other soldiers froze. "Release them," Jake said in perfect Talon language. "Or, your commander dies. Then each of you dies, and I continue my day." They released the civilians. Jake let the commander go, and vanished into the shadows before they could react. Veltara could not breathe. Who was this man? This was not the Jake who grew flowers. This was not the man who read poetry and talked about peace. This was a weapon. A weapon that had been disguised as a man. Hours passed. The attack continued. But Jake was everywhere, disrupting the Talon forces, saving lives, killing without hesitation when needed. Veltara watched it all, unable to look away. Finally, she saw him enter a building where a Talon command unit had set up. She counted 15 soldiers inside. Elite troops with the best equipment. Jake went in alone. The security feed showed the interior. Veltara watched as Jake moved through the building like smoke. He used the ventilation system, the walls, the shadows. The Talon soldiers died one by one, never seeing what killed them until it was too late. When only the commander remained, Jake stepped out of the shadows. The Talon commander was a huge creature, twice Jake's size. It roared and charged with a massive blade. Jake did not run. He moved sideways, used the commander's own momentum against it. The blade missed by centimeters. Jake struck pressure points Veltara did not know existed. The massive alien collapsed. Jake did not kill this one. He secured the commander and activated a communication device. "Command center neutralized," he said into his comm. "Commander captured. Send security teams." Then he looked up, directly at the camera Veltara was watching through. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. Jake's expression was unreadable. Veltara pulled back from the screen, her whole body shaking. She had been so wrong. The humans had not sent her a diplomat who could fight. They had sent her a warrior who could pretend to be a diplomat. Everything Jake had shown her, the gardens, the poetry, the gentle conversations, had that all been a lie? A performance? Or was it real, and this violence was the lie? She did not know anymore. She did not know anything. Around her, people in the shelter were crying, praying, hoping for rescue. Veltara sat in silence, watching the feeds as human reinforcements began to arrive. Ships descended from orbit. Soldiers deployed. And through it all, Jake moved through the settlement. A fallen star burning everything it touched. Protecting what it loved, even as it destroyed. The human fleet arrived like thunder from a clear sky. Veltara watched from the shelter's observation screens as warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, already in attack formation. Destroyers, cruisers, fighter carriers. They moved with precision that spoke of endless training. But it was not the ships that frightened her. It was what came out of them. Drop pods fell from orbit like rain, each containing human soldiers. They hit the ground, hard and fast, doors bursting open before the pods had fully stopped. Marines poured out, weapons ready, moving with purpose. Veltara had studied military tactics as part of her diplomatic training. She knew how most species fought. Zothreen warriors formed traditional battle lines, using shields and coordinated volleys. The Talon hegemony relied on superior firepower and heavy armor. Humans did neither. They flowed across the battlefield like water, breaking into small groups that moved independently but somehow worked together perfectly. They used buildings as cover, disappeared into alleys, appeared where they were not expected. They adapted constantly, changing tactics every few minutes. The Talon forces had no answer for it. A group of Talon soldiers set up a defensive position at a major intersection. It was well-chosen ground with good sight lines and strong fortifications. By traditional military thinking, it would take hours and heavy casualties to break. The humans took it in 12 minutes. They did not attack directly. Instead, they came from 3 different directions at once. Some created a distraction with heavy fire from the front. Others scaled buildings and attacked from above. A third group breached through an underground service tunnel. By the time the Talon soldiers realized what was happening, it was over. Veltara cycled through different camera feeds, watching similar scenes across the settlement. Everywhere, human forces were winning not through strength, but through creativity. They turned the Talon's own tactics against them. They used psychological warfare, making the enemy paranoid and scattered. In one area, humans played recordings of screaming and weapons fire in empty buildings, drawing Talon forces into traps. In another, they hacked Talon communications and fed false orders, causing friendly fire incidents. This was not the clean, honorable warfare Veltara had been taught to respect. This was dirty, clever, and absolutely devastating. A notification appeared on her screen. Captain Lisa Morgan was entering the settlement with reinforcements. Veltara found the camera feed, showing the landing zone. Morgan stepped out of her transport, surveyed the battlefield, and started giving orders. Her people moved immediately. No questions asked. Morgan's team headed toward the shelter. Veltara felt relief mixed with anxiety. She still did not understand what was happening, who these humans really were. When Morgan entered the shelter, her presence was like a cold wind. She scanned the room, assessing everyone in seconds. Her eyes found Veltara. "Princess," Morgan said, approaching. "You are safe." "Good." "Captain Morgan," Veltara replied. "What is happening? Where is Jake?" "Commander Collins is securing the eastern sector." Morgan's expression was unreadable. "He is doing what he does best." "What he does best," Veltara repeated. "You mean killing?" Morgan's eyes narrowed. "I mean protecting. There is a difference." "Is there?" "I have been watching him. Watching all of you. This is what humans are. Is it not? Warriors. Killers." Morgan was quiet for a moment, then gestured toward the shelter exit. "Come with me. There is something you should see." And, "Mask Marganosk, 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 Marganosk." Veltara followed, her guards protesting but ultimately allowing it. Morgan led her through secured corridors to an observation point overlooking the settlement. The battle was still ongoing, in some areas, but much of the settlement was already secured. "Look there," Morgan said, pointing to a section of the settlement that had taken heavy damage. Veltara looked and saw human medics working among the wounded. They were treating everyone. Humans, Zothreen, even injured Talon soldiers. A human nurse was carefully bandaging a Zothreen child while singing softly to calm them. And there, Morgan pointed to another area. Human engineers were already working to restore power and water to damaged buildings. They moved quickly and efficiently, prioritizing areas with the most civilians. "We are warriors," Morgan said. "We will not apologize for that. But we are also healers, builders, guardians. We choose when to be which." "Jake chose to be a warrior today," Veltara said, "because today required a warrior. Tomorrow, he will choose something else. Movement caught Veltara's attention. She saw Jake's team approaching across a plaza. There were 5 of them, moving together with the ease of long practice. They were dirty, exhausted, but alive. They saw Morgan and changed direction, heading up to the observation point. As they got closer, Veltara could see them more clearly. They all wore the same expression Jake had: focused, alert, dangerous. But when Jake saw her, his expression changed. The hardness softened. "Veltara," he said. "You are safe." "Yes." She did not know what else to say. One of his team members, a woman with short red hair, looked at Veltara with curiosity. "So this is your princess. She does not look like she approves of our work. Can you blame her?" Another team member said, a man with a scarred face. "We just showed her what we really are." "What we really are is complicated," Jake said quietly. He looked at Veltara. "Can we talk?" Privately, they moved to a small room away from the others. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Veltara saw that Jake had blood on his uniform. She did not ask if it was his. "You lied to me," she said finally. "No," Jake replied. "I never lied. I just did not tell you everything. You let me think you were harmless. I let you see who I am when I am not at war. That was not a lie. That was the truth." Veltara shook her head. "You are a killer. A weapon. Everything else was just a mask." Jake's expression tightened with pain. "Is that what you think? That the man who cooked breakfast for you was fake? That the conversations we had meant nothing? I do not know what to think anymore. Then let me help you understand." Jake sat down heavily, suddenly looking exhausted. "I was a soldier. A very good one. I did terrible things because they needed to be done, and every single one of those things changed me, hurt me, made me into something I did not want to be." He looked up at her. "Then, I met you. And for the first time in years, I remembered that I could be something other than a weapon. You made me want to choose peace, to build instead of destroy. That was real. Veltara, that was more real than anything I had been in years. But the moment violence came, you became a weapon again, because people needed protecting. Because if I did not fight, innocent people would die." His voice was intense. "Yes, I know how to kill. Yes, I am good at it. But I hate it. Every single time, I hate it. And when this is over, I will go back to my garden and try to remember how to be human again." Veltara sat down across from him. "How do you do it? How do you switch between peace and war like that?" "Practice," Jake said bitterly. "Too much practice. But also choice. Every moment, I choose. Right now, I am choosing to be gentle with you. Even though you are angry. Earlier, I chose to be violent to protect others. Tomorrow, I will choose to help rebuild. These are all me. All real. I do not understand humans." Veltara whispered. "We do not understand ourselves sometimes," Jake admitted. "We are capable of such cruelty and such kindness, often at the same time. It is what makes us human." Outside, the sounds of battle were fading. The Talon forces were retreating or surrendering. The settlement was being secured. "What happens now?" Veltara asked. Jake stood and offered her his hand. "Now we do the other part of being human. We heal. We rebuild. We try to make sure this never happens again." "Jake?" She looked at his hand for a long moment, then took it. His grip was gentle, despite the strength she knew it held. Together, they walked back out into the wounded settlement. Two people from different worlds, trying to understand each other in the ruins of peace. The days following the attack were strange and painful. Veltara moved through the damaged settlement like a ghost, watching humans and Jathreen work together to repair what had been broken. Buildings were rebuilt. Wounded were treated. The dead were honored. She saw Jake every day. But they barely spoke. He was busy coordinating relief efforts, organizing security, planning for potential future attacks. When their eyes met across crowded rooms, she saw the question there. Did she still hate him for what she had seen? She did not hate him, but she did not know what she felt. 3 days after the attack, she sent a message to her father requesting a private conversation. When his image appeared on the secure channel, Emperor Zarthun looked older than she remembered. "Daughter," he said, "I have heard reports of what happened." "Physically, yes," Veltara replied. "But father, I must ask you something. Did you know what Jake was? What he had been?" Her father was quiet for a moment. "Yes," he said finally. "We knew. You knew he was one of their elite soldiers? One of their killers? We knew he was called Wraith 1. We knew he had done black operations work for the human military. We knew he was, as you say, a killer." Veltara felt betrayed. "And you still chose him for this marriage? You sent me to live with a weapon?" "We chose him precisely because he was a weapon," her father said. His voice was gentle but firm. "Think, daughter. If we wanted peace, would we bind you to someone weak? Someone who could not protect what we built? But the violence exists whether we acknowledge it or not. The Talon hegemony proved that. Evil exists in the galaxy, Veltara. We needed someone who understood that, who could face it when necessary." Emperor Zarthun leaned forward. "We chose Commander Collins because he was a warrior who chose peace. Do you understand the difference? Anyone can choose peace when they have no other option. But a man who knows war, who is good at it, and still chooses peace? That is a man who understands what peace costs." Veltara sat in silence, processing her father's words. "He protected you," her father continued. "He protected the settlement. He did what needed to be done. And from what I hear, he hated every moment of it. That is the man we wanted you to marry. Not a diplomat who talks of peace but has never known war. A warrior who knows war, and chooses peace anyway." After the call ended, Veltara sat alone for a long time. She thought about Jake tending his garden, reading poetry, cooking breakfast. Were those the actions of a man pretending to be peaceful, or the actions of a warrior desperately trying to remember his humanity? She found him 2 days later in the settlement's temporary greenhouse. He was working with some of the earth plants that had been damaged in the attack, trying to save them. His hands moved carefully among the delicate stems. "May I join you?" she asked from the doorway. Jake looked up, surprised. "Of course." She entered and stood beside him, watching his hands work. "You are trying to save them," she observed. "Yes. These bamboo shoots are from my family's garden on Earth. They survived the trip across space, survived being transplanted. It would be sad if they died now because of someone else's violence." Veltara picked up a small tool and began helping, following Jake's lead. They worked in silence for a while. "I spoke with my father," she said eventually. "He told me they knew what you were, what you had been." Jake's hands stilled. "And how do you feel about that?" Confused, angry, but also understanding, perhaps. She looked at him. "I was wrong to call you a monster. You are not a monster. Monsters enjoy violence. You clearly do not." "No," Jake agreed quietly. "I do not. I never have." "Then why do it? Why be so good at something you hate?" Jake carefully planted a bamboo shoot before answering. "Because when I was young, I saw violence done to people who could not defend themselves. I swore I would never let that happen again if I had the power to stop it. So I became powerful. I learned to fight, to kill, to win." He looked at his hands, stained with dirt. "But power is dangerous. The more you use violence, the easier it becomes. The more of yourself you lose. I was losing myself, Veltara, becoming nothing but a weapon. Then they offered me this assignment. This marriage. A chance to be something else. I took it because I wanted to remember how to be human. And did you? Remember? Jake smiled, sad but real. Valtara set down her tool. I need to tell you something. When I saw you fight, I was terrified. Not of you hurting me, but of understanding what humans really are. What we are is complicated. Let me finish, she interrupted gently. I was terrified because I understood. Humans are capable of such violence. But you are also capable of choosing not to use it. That choice, that control. Jake looked at her, waiting. My people are warriors too, Valtara continued. But we have never had to make that choice. We fight with honor, following codes and traditions. But humans, you can fight without honor when needed. Then choose to be honorable again. You can be brutal and gentle, destructive and creative, all at the same time. Anram. Does that frighten you? Jake asked. Yes, she admitted. But I think I understand now why that makes you valuable. Not just as soldiers, but as peacekeepers. You know what violence costs, because you have paid that price. You know what peace is worth, because you have fought for it. Jake reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. He took her hand gently. I am sorry you had to see that side of me. I wish you could have only known the peaceful version, but that would not be knowing you, Valtara said. The peaceful man and the warrior are both you. I cannot accept one without the other. They stayed in the greenhouse for hours, talking more honestly than they ever had before. Jake told her about missions he had run, the things he had done, the people he had lost. Valtara listened without judgment, finally understanding the weight he carried. I have nightmares, Jake admitted, about the people I have killed, even when they deserved it, even when it saved lives. I see their faces. I know, Valtara said. I have heard you cry out in your sleep. Does it bother you? It would bother me more if you did not have nightmares. If violence did not affect you. A week after the attack, Valtara and Jake were called to address the Galactic Council. They stood together before the assembled representatives, the same chamber where they had been married months before. The mood was tense. The Talon hegemony attack had shaken everyone. Some species were calling for military buildups. Others wanted stronger isolation. Valtara spoke first. I married a human for peace, she said, her voice clear and strong. I thought I understood what that meant. I thought peace was the absence of conflict. I was wrong. She looked at Jake, then back at the council. I saw my husband fight war like a fallen star, burning, destructive, terrible to witness. But he fell to protect the innocent. He burned to keep others safe. And when the battle ended, he chose to rebuild rather than continue destroying. Jake stepped forward. Every human carries this duality within them. We are capable of both creation and destruction, violence and peace, cruelty and kindness. What defines us is not our capabilities, but our choices. Together, they presented their proposal. A joint defense force, combining human and Zothrine forces, not to wage war, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. To stand against violence while choosing peace. We do not propose an army of conquest, Valtara explained. We propose guardians who understand the cost of war because they have paid it. Warriors who choose peace because they know what the alternative costs. The debate lasted for hours. Some supported the idea, others opposed it. But slowly, support grew. The proposal passed with a narrow majority. The first combined human Zothrine defense force would be established, with Jake and Valtara overseeing its creation. That night, back on the Covenant, they stood together at the viewport, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon. The planet turned slowly, blue and white and beautiful. Are you happy? Jake asked. Valtara thought about the question. I am not sure happy is the right word. I am hopeful. hopeful that we can build something good from all this. That is enough, Jake said. Hope is always enough to start with. She took his hand, no longer afraid of the strength she knew it held. Will you teach me? She asked. About being human. About making hard choices. About carrying the weight of violence, while choosing peace. If you will teach me about hope, Jake replied. I had forgotten what that felt like until I met you. We will teach each other then, Veltara said. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars turn. Two people from different worlds, each carrying their own burdens, choosing together to build something new. Not perfect peace, because perfect peace did not exist, but real peace, built by those who understood its price. Outside the viewport, space stretched endlessly, full of danger and beauty, full of violence and wonder. The galaxy had not become safer, but perhaps it had become a little wiser, and sometimes that was enough.